BS-Free Witchcraft is a production of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Nerd and Tie produces podcasts ranging from actual play to true crime, and you can find more at nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. I like this book a lot. But if you're in my audience, I don't actually know if you should read it. I'll explain in a moment. Well, welcome to BS-Free Witchcraft, your monthly guide to the modern witchcraft movement. Minus a lot of the usual, well, bullshit. I'm your host, Trey Dorn, and it is May of 2025. And before we get started, before we get into this month's topic, I do want to remind you that this July, like every July, I will be doing my Q&A and feedback episode, where I open up the show to questions from the audience and I answer them. If there's some topic you want me to cover, if there's some like curiosity you have that you think I might be able to add some light to, or if you just want to like tell me what a terrible job I'm doing, this is your opportunity. Just go to bsfreewitchcraft.com/contact and fill out the contact form. The deadline is July 11th, 2025, because this is, again, the 2025 episode. If you're listening to this in the future, I presume you've skipped ahead from this part. And, yeah. But anyways, so if you're here in the now with me, relatively so, July 11th, 2025, send me your questions, send me your feedback. I want to hear it. I want to read it out loud. Remember, like any other year, I anonymize the questions, so you don't have to worry about your name getting read out loud if you're not comfortable, like advertising your interest in witchcraft to the general public. Don't worry, we won't. But also, please don't include any details in your questions that you are not comfortable with me saying on the podcast. That said, so with that aside, the little pinch of housekeeping, we're going to talk about a witchcraft book. And it's surprisingly one that I like. I occasionally get accused of being like really negative on this show, and I mean, rightfully so. I talk about the name of the show is BS-Free Witchcraft, right? I started the whole premise of the show with there are a lot of things I don't like in the modern witchcraft movement, so let's talk about bad things and tell you why they're bad, and I'll try to highlight good things and tell you why they're good, but, you know, often the bad stuff, that ends up being more entertaining. I mean, we spent the whole last episode talking about a piece of propaganda that I hate. Also, notoriously, I don't like witchcraft books. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure, and I held off on releasing this episode until May, is because exactly 1 year ago, I did a review of this book, Celtic Goddess Grimoire by Annwyn, Avalon. And I hate this book. The name of the episode is I Hate This Book. So, like, and it was a great example of everything I dislike about modern witchcraft publishing. And it became the sacrifice on the altar, so to speak. And I just, you know, I cannot reiterate how much I hated Celtic Goddess Grimoire by Annwyn, Avalon. But here's the secret, and it's something that I've talked about on the show before, but a lot of people don't realize, is that I actually don't like most witchcraft books, even ones that are good. Like, I don't enjoy reading them. There's this stereotype in the witchcraft community that we're all hoarding witchcraft books, and it's not as universal as some people think. Like, I get the impulse. Don't get me wrong. I'm a nerd. I collect the crap out of things. But I don't... There's an impulse and a desire for a lot of us in the witchcraft community to keep expanding our craft and doing more stuff. But I'm just going to tell you, I have been doing witchcraft for over 25 years. And, God, almost 30. oh God, I'm getting old. Anyways, there's just like, and early on, like in like the first half decade, 10 years of my practice, I was consuming everything I could and learning, but I kind of figured out what I like to do, how I like to do it, my own techniques, and what I was comfortable with and what I wasn't. And I kind of found my lane, right? Like I know what kind of spells and spell work for me. I know my history pretty well. I think I've at least established some of those bona fides within like the context of the show, at least, if not other places. I don't enjoy reading most witchcraft books. They're just not for me. Even most of the good ones aren't for me. And so I always like struggle, like when people ask me for book recommendations, I always struggle to come up with stuff because like a lot of the stuff I did read years ago is stuff written in another age, and I wouldn't recognize and share that. And so like my book recommendation list is always like, okay, Drawing Down the Moon by Margaret Adler. It's still good, and it'll tell you kind of the history throughout the 20th century of how the modern witchcraft movement showed up. And then if people are interested in like a general beginner book for like secular witchcraft, I love Brina Guerin's Grove Daughter Witchery. And if you're interested in Wicca, a great primer is still Scott Cunningham's Wicca Guide for the Solitary Practitioner. Understanding that it is dated and written in an era where we have a different understanding, and you should think critically about it, and talk to other witches, especially if you want to get into Wicca. But like, those are the 3 books I often recommend, and that's it. And it's because like I went, and before I started recommending those on this show, I went and reread all of them. Well, Brina Guerin's book I read for the first time for this show. That's how we became friends, was reading her book, and then we later had her on the podcast. But and then friendship happened. So like, and I've talked about this before, that like I get offered review copies of books a good amount of time. I have, and I turned down most of them. I talked about this in the episode where I reviewed Avalon's book a year ago, that like I usually say no, and I just sort of was like, I'm going to admit I read the description of the book and I was like, an example I can make. And it was an honest review, and I went and I read that book. If that book had turned out to be good, it would have been a really interesting episode, but it did not. So, I really hate that book. But there's also a lot of witchcraft books out there that I don't think are bad or harmful, that I just don't enjoy. Like, that's really the thing, is it's like I don't enjoy the books that are even like not like Annwyn Avalon's book is full of stuff that I think is often like actively harmful to the witchcraft community, some of this stuff. And whoever wants to come for me can come for me. I've gotten in fights with bigger names than that. But like, there's a reason why, though. I get offers to interview people on this show a lot, and I turn them down because I don't want to just be mean to somebody. So it's like, that's why I never reached out to try to have Annwyn Avalon on the show, because I would have been I don't want to be mean to someone's face. But again, like, there are plenty of books that are, so for an example, about a year ago, almost a year ago, I got sent a copy of Virgo Witch. Llewellyn sent me this by Ivo Dominguez Jr. and Thumper Forge. I read it. I didn't review it. Like, there's nothing terrible about it, and the parts that Thumper writes, I actively kind of liked, but overall, my lesson reading this book was that this book is not for me. This is not for me. And I'm saying that as a triple Virgo. So it's like, I don't vibe with this at all. And I really like, I follow Thumper on multiple social media platforms. Thumper follows me, and I love the stuff. I love the content that Thumper. And again, like, there's nothing bad in this book. Like, there's nothing that I found openly hostile or bad or wrong, or like, I wasn't offended. I wasn't like, it was just like, I didn't like reading it. So my secret mission over the last year was to find a witchcraft book whose contents interested me, where the premise was interesting, that, and hopefully what I hoped was that I would like it, like that I would enjoy reading it. So that's, so I was like looking at stuff, new releases, and I was looking at different writers, and I'm not going to say everyone whose stuff I looked at and everything that I did. Like, let's be clear, like, this has been a secret, subtle mission. I wasn't too subtle. I mentioned when I bought this one on social media because, the book we're going to talk about today is Witches Among Us by Thorn Mooney. And I don't know Thorn personally. It is a situation like with Thumper where we don't know each other. There is some mutual following on at least one social network. I think maybe two. I don't remember who follows me back sometimes, but I know or at least mutuals on TikTok, but we don't know each other. Like, we've never had like a one-on-one conversation. We've never met. Like, it's at most parasocial in more than one direction, but I'm betting it's mostly my direction as I'm far less well known. But like, technically she knows my name, but we don't know each other as people. So I want to be really clear. And unlike Annwyn Avalon's book, where the publisher reached out to me and asked to send me a copy, nobody asked to send this to me. I went out and paid for this book with my own money, which, as you can tell, I bought it because it's on a Kindle. I mean, it's my iPad, but it's on Kindle, and it's an ebook because I live in a very small place on purpose, but that means there's not a lot of space for a lot of new physical books. So when I buy things for myself, I buy ebooks. Because, you know, space, humanity, the realities of being a middle-aged witch. So I bought this book with my own money, and I was right. I was right that I would enjoy this book. So I want to talk about what this book is. What purpose it serves, and why in the end, ironically, even though this is the best, my favorite witchcraft book I've read in years, I don't necessarily think the audience of this show specifically, I don't think most of you need to buy this. But you might want to buy it for someone. So, the tagline of this book is everything you wanted to know about witchcraft but were afraid to ask. What Witches Among Us is about is effectively a summary of what is happening right now, for better or for worse, in the witchcraft world if you were trying to explain it to someone who didn't know anything about the modern witchcraft movement, like the culture and the people and what it is. And I think this is probably a very necessary, this is a necessary book that I didn't realize was necessary until I was picking it up and reading it. Thorn Mooney, if you're unfamiliar with her work, she's She is a British traditional Wiccan. She's Gardnerian, I believe. But she also has graduate degrees in religious studies and English lit. She exists in the worlds of academia, but also has been if you want to find her bibliography, you can. It's very, very easy to find. She is a well-established witchcraft author in the current day, and follows the grand pattern of every witchcraft author I've ever talked to having a day job, because this is not a big community. Oh, this is a small community, guys. You're within just a couple of degrees of every other person listening to this show, I'm betting. It's just statistically. But this book does something really interesting, and that is, again, it talks about things that a lot of us historically didn't think, might not have thought needed to be talked about. Like, that when you've been in the witchcraft community for a while, I think a lot is taken for granted about understanding like the breadth and width of what's going on here. There's also a lot of generational stuff. Like, when I enter witchcraft spaces, I can guarantee, based on the age of the people I'm interacting with, whether or not they're going to use certain terminology and words, whether I'm likely to hear someone talk about secular witchcraft or talk about like when people conflate Wicca with witchcraft as a whole, just like generationally, all this different stuff. And I think what is easy to forget is that the corner of the witchcraft community that you exist in, that I exist in, there are very different corners, and that there is a breadth and depth to this movement which is easy to forget. Additionally, with the fact that Wicca for so long was such a dominant voice, that in the witchcraft boom of the 90s, when we were getting a lot of the first big press, because Wicca was so dominant in that conversation, as it was the biggest part of the movement at the time for sure. I still think it is one of the larger, I still think it's not as dominant as it was then now, but there's a lot of things that entered the popular consciousness for outsiders about the witchcraft movement. Like, the fact that a lot of people outside the movement think of Wicca and witchcraft as synonymous, when listeners of this show are aware that Wicca is a form of witchcraft, and that witchcraft as a term is far more encompassing. One of the great things about this book is how it's just willing to completely split apart everything that you take for granted when you live in this community, right? So I became a witch in the 90s, in the mid 90s, and I was a solitary eclectic Wiccan, and that is what I remain today. And I mostly knew other solitary eclectic Wiccans. And due to some negative experiences I had in the early to mid 2000s, I kind of separated myself away from a lot of in-person community. And when I decided to return, like, I waggled my toes in a few times. And I've talked about this before. I kind of like had an exit from the community, and I came back in the 2010s with Witchblur. And because I met a friend of mine at a comic convention, because we were both doing, it was an independent comics convention, and we were both doing comics, and so we were both selling there, and we met over that, and so we followed each other on Tumblr, and then it turned out that they were also a witch. And so it was and because of that, I ended up getting directed to more witchcraft conversations. And most of the people who follow me on Tumblr right now do so for things like this show, and have no idea that it started out because I was making comics. I was promoting comics on Tumblr, and that's what got me back into linking up with the witchcraft community. But the witchcraft community I found was just, and this is, 10 years after I had stopped being so active, was very different then. And even to now, it's very different now. I ended up meeting different people, becoming mutuals with people like Ask Secular Witch, who is probably going to hate the fact that I'm making this episode because she really does not like Thorn Mooney. Sec has a grudge. Not important. Sec doesn't listen to this show anymore. I don't have to worry about that. But like the version of the community I came into, I often found myself at first struggling when I re-entered the community. And this is over a dozen years ago. And what happened is that I had to relearn terms and relearn things, but things kept happening. The witchcraft movement has evolved and changed in ways that the pop culture image of witchcraft has not kept up with, right? Like, if you find a character on a show, on a modern television show, talking about witchcraft, they're going to talk about Wicca, even though a lot of people who you will find on social media do not call themselves that and do not consider themselves that. Even ones who, still take things that were established in Wicca, will take them and decontextualize them and change them. And that is all good. Like, I am not being critical, but if you aren't living in this world, it suddenly becomes this opaque thing, right? Like, the depth and corners and all of this, even for people who sometimes live in it, is challenging. But when people come into witchcraft as beginners, while we are more than happy to teach them how to do spells, I am more than happy to give them a book on history, often what is missing is explaining to them the complexities, like understanding that, okay, I came into this corner of the witchcraft world, I'm going to assume this is all the witchcraft world. It's not. And so one of the things that this book does really well is just, without spending a ton of time in specifics, give you an understanding of the breadth and depth of what you're looking at and talking about. And, even though we're covering things basic, like what does witch mean, which we all know that's like, defining witch and witchcraft sounds really easy to start with, and then you start trying to talk about it, and then you end up with like a half-hour podcast just trying to define a stupid word. Sorry. But this book breaks it down in as simple terms for someone who is new to witchcraft, who tries to enter this community. All this is so opaque. What this does is shine at least a little bit of transparency on what is happening, at least in the current moment. This book was published in 2024, so it's very much of the witchcraft of now. And I'm sure in 10 years, parts of this are going to be outdated, and I hope it gets updated when that eventuality happens. But what this book does is really, from going through definitions of things about, the types of witchcraft, what kind of things witches do, explaining that not every kind of witch does every kind of thing, like, just real basic stuff, like, that I think a lot of people who are already in the witchcraft community take for granted their knowledge of. So the fact that, and this is why this book is important, because never before has there really been, in my opinion, a good, well-written book that successfully executes this, of giving you a short, concise book that is a good breakdown on what the hell we're doing. And this is a book that I am adding this to my, when people ask me for beginner books, this is going on the list because because of all the biases and focuses of different witchcraft books of varying quality, where so many authors are bad at explaining that they're only presenting the one kind of witchcraft. This is going on my list for beginners. I think that this is, in my opinion, a must-read for new witches. And if you're a new witch, like if this is your first episode of BS3 Witchcraft you're ever listening to, or like first dozen, this is like, and you're in your first year of being a witch, I do think this is a beneficial book to read. But also, I think it's a beneficial book for those people to have. Because what this book is really good at, besides the fact that I think this should be in every beginner's collection, or at least read by them, I also think this is a good book to have ready for the people in your life who don't know what the hell witchcraft is and really want to find out, and you don't want to have the conversation. We all know the conversation. Let me tell you, if you are a witch who has had to explain what witchcraft is to their family, or to a loved one, or to their friends, like the moment you're ever public about this, you've had the conversation. I spent years hiding witchcraft stuff, not because I thought I was going to be persecuted, not because I thought that I was going to, because frankly, in the modern age, in America, the modern witchcraft movement, we are not persecuted. There are places in this world where being called a witch is a very bad thing and dangerous, but not here. There is a conversation I used to hate to have. It's happened a lot in college, way back in the day, but it's happened other times in my life, and that is explaining what the hell witchcraft is over and over and over again. Explaining my religion over and over and over again when I'm just trying to I took a religious studies course. I took several in college, and it was comparative world religions. And one of the exercises that the professor had us do was it was a huge lecture, so that we broke up into groups, and it was just to introduce each other and talk about our own personal religious backgrounds. The moment I was honest and mentioned that I was a Wiccan witch, in that group, every other group got to be like a bunch of people talking about their backgrounds and stuff, and the moment I mentioned I was a witch, it was suddenly 5 people asking me questions about witchcraft. Over and over and over again. And it was just this prime example of, oh God. Sometimes you just want to exist, right? Sometimes you just want to exist and not have to explain everything to everyone at all times. Because especially in a situation if you are public about this, you will be required to pretend you're an authority on it. I try to tell people that not every witch knows everything about everything, because we don't. In fact, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of witches are dumb as fuck. Because a lot of humans are, right? Witches aren't better or worse than anybody else. And believe it or not, most of us aren't experts on anything except for maybe what we're doing. And even then, when we start out doing it, we are still figuring shit out. And if I had this book, or a version of this book 20 years ago, I would have just been able to be here, take this, take this nice, lovely book and read it. Just read the book. Read the book. Here, I will hand you a book. It will explain to you what the hell is going on, and I can go back to eating my lunch. It's that is a valuable resource that I think it just didn't exist, because there's a lot of witchcraft books that will explain witchcraft, but they are designed for people who are trying to become witches. And while I think this is a good book for those people, it also, importantly, is written in a way where it is good to explain to someone who just knows a witch. Like, it's not trying to sell you on it. It's not trying to make it look attractive. It's not trying to tell you how to do it. It's telling you what the hell these people are doing. And the fact that we didn't have a good book like this before is a blind spot that I think we all had. Like, and again, there may have been books intended to do this, but this is the first good one. This is the first one it's really well written for a mass audience. First off, like, this isn't something directed at, while Mooney is an academic, this isn't pointed to academics, right? This is written for a general audience, and I think Mooney does a really good job communicating this, because while if it was just a book that filled this niche and was accurate, it would be, I would consider it like good, but I wouldn't have enjoyed it. But Mooney's writing is actually good. Like, I don't know how to explain. I sat down and read this book on my vacation. I was sitting on a lake in my recliner, and I read this book over the course of 2 days because it was good. And the only reason why I took a break while reading it is because I needed to recharge the battery on my tablet. And I will tell you, there are things about that. Look, y'all, one of my favorite things about this book, and I cannot begin to say how wonderful and how every book on witchcraft needs this, and that is at the end of almost every chapter, when you get to the end of the chapter. So there are footnotes and everything, but at the end of every chapter is suggested reading. At the end of every chapter, there's suggested reading. And it breaks it down from scholars, from other witches, and each book or whatever resource that is listed has a paragraph explaining why. It just, like, explaining why. Sometimes, the academic sources, I should say, the sources from other witches, it doesn't always explain why, but there is a good paragraph here. It's just, bless, this is fucking great. Like, I love, like, there is, of course, like, footnotes and citations, but like, this is why this is so good for beginners. Like, these are vetted sources with an explanation of what you might take away from them. And it's just, the number of times where, like, people ask me for books, I'm like, I don't know. I might start going through this book and referencing some of the, I mean, obviously I will never recommend a book that I do not read myself. Obviously. But this is so good for beginners. This is so good. These are very different books of very different purposes, but to contrast this with, like, Annwyn Avalon's work, because it's sitting on my desk. Avalon's work focuses so much on herself, and you don't have good citations, you don't have good, places to look, and that's why it's bad. To contrast it with a well-written book, not only do you have citations, but you also have recommendations on where to go further than where the text is prepared to take you. Because again, and I know this is, again, very different books for very different purposes, but like the Celtic Goddess Grimoire by Annwyn and Avalon is meant to be like this overview of a bunch of stuff, like even though that it's goddesses, but what you don't get are places to find out more about. Like, wouldn't that be a great opportunity in a book like that? A book that's a list of goddesses to like, where can I find out more about the traditions of these goddesses? Give me three books I can go read. What are good academic sources that'll talk about the historical context of those things? None of that is in this book. But in Mooney's book, we get that at the end of every chapter. And this isn't an afterthought. This isn't some like thing where like at the back of the book there is a single thing listing other places to go look. No, this is at the end of every chapter. So each one of these, the reason there for further reading is explained and understood. Like, these things that are being recommended for further reading are there to further extrapolate on what you just read. On this focus section, this is the focus stuff that will help you learn more. And that is remarkable. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. And also, it'll probably help get some people some book sales, which is, good, because it's not a big industry. And frankly, most people in this community, the book collectors, y'all, I love you. I love you guys. I'm not one of you when it comes to witchcraft books, but I love you because y'all are single-handedly keeping the witchcraft publishing industry afloat. Because again, not a big community. And all of these writers have day jobs, so you should help them. Yeah. Also buy my novels. That's unrelated to witchcraft books that I'm just suddenly realized that you guys should buy my books. Anyways. So yeah. This is a book which explains the world we're in and where to find out more about so many different aspects. And it is a book we needed. But I don't know how much the listeners of this show need it, because the fact is, the vast majority of the people who listen to this show every month know most of this stuff. Like, if you're an experienced witch, there may be things you learn in this book, like, especially like if you have been kind of niched into like a certain community, like if you're only hanging out with other secular witches and you don't know any British traditional Wiccans, or vice versa, right? Like if you're entrenched in a corner of the community and you're not necessarily familiar with what's going on in the broader, like, environment, there are things you'll learn in this book, but there's also going to be, most of this is going to be stuff like, because we're not the intended audience. Like, I really enjoyed it, but I knew reading this book time and time again that I was not the intended audience, because I did not really learn anything I didn't already know reading it. I got good recommendations that I wouldn't necessarily have thought to read, but I knew the stuff in this book. I knew there was a chance of that. It was still a pleasure to read. Like, I did enjoy it, and that is a rare thing. But again, I've been a witch for 25 years. I'm active in the community. I know a ton of witches in real life. I am in contact with many more on social media. I have purposely, since this show launched, was it 2018, I think? Well, since this show launched, I have actively been going out and trying to explore parts of the witchcraft community that I'm not in. So, like, I knew this stuff. I don't know if I would have known some of this stuff if I wasn't doing the show. And I think a lot of you who listen to this show, who, like the state of witchcraft that we are in, a lot of you are not going to learn anything phenomenal or new picking up Witches Among Us. But it is a handy book to have. It is a handy book to have in case anyone in your life is like, I want to know more about this, without handing them a massive, like, detailed history of everything that has ever happened, or, you know, trying to have, like, it is a good book. It is a great book for a general audience who wants to find out the basics. And it is a great thing to have as a tool in your toolbox to be able to, because inevitably, if you're public about your witchcraft, if to the degree of even just telling friends and family, you're going to want them to be able to understand without having to have the conversation, which also is stressful, you know, like, let's be honest, like, like, this is a thing that's not just like, this is not just a witchcraft thing. I also say this is a queer person. Like, there's so many times where, like, I have to explain my existence to a normal person. And the fact that now there's a book, at least for the witchcraft stuff, I could just be like, hey, just read this, is actually, like, such a fundamental relief, because it's such a stressful conversation, right? You are so worried about getting it wrong. Well, here's someone who vetted their sources and had an editor to at least make sure that, like, there you go. This works. So yeah, I loved this book. I don't know if you should buy it if you're a listener of this show, but many people should. Because this is, I think, a good, and I am putting this on my list of must-owns for beginners. And it is both a book to read for those people, but also to have as a tool, because inevitably, if you're a beginner in witchcraft, you're going to have, assuming you stick with it, not everybody does, and there's nothing wrong with that, because trying stuff and seeing if you like it is good. And putting aside the stuff you don't like is also good. I think this is a good book to have in their toolbox. And I love this book. Don't know if you need to buy it, but I'm glad I did. And that was me talking for like 40 minutes. Oh boy. Ah, well, at least no one's going to, complain about a short episode this month. That's it. Again, I paid for this book out of my own pocket. I was not offered a copy by the publisher. I think this is an excellent addition to anyone's library at the very least. Also, honestly, if you buy physical books, it's a cool looking cover. Let's see who the cover artist is. Cover was designed by Kevin R. Brown. Book is from Llewellyn Publishing. Again, Witches Among Us by Thorn Mooney. That's a cool ass cover. That will look, if you've got a physical book, if you buy the physical book, that'll look good on a shelf. So, consider buying it. Consider reading it. I think it's good. This is on my must recommend. This is my must. Yeah, this is on the list. This is on the list. It's the fourth book on the list. The must buy for beginner witches is now 4 books long. And the best part about this is that it'll handle the rest of the book recommendations for me. So people don't keep going like, Babel, what do you have for more? I'm like, look at the list. Look at the suggested reading. You know what I do like, and I know this is probably because Mooney is an academic, but I love the fact that, again, I cannot stress this enough that I love the fact that there are both scholarly and sources and witchcraft related sources on those recommended readings, because it's one of the biggest mistakes I think most witches make is only looking at information about witchcraft from within the community and not, looking at things from a scholarly perspective, because there are many things that this community has done stupidly over the decades, and 90% of them can be attributed to when someone only learns about their witchcraft stuff from other witches who may or may not have an agenda on how things are presented. Yeah. Okay, that's enough of me ranting for 45 minutes about a book. In a positive rant, folks, a positive rant. We have spent an episode talking about something that I love, and even if I found a way to complain about a different author while we were talking about it, I love this book. This book is great. Thorn Mooney's Witches Among Us, Llewellyn Publishing. Get it if you want to. It's about the biggest endorsement I got. That wraps us up for another month on the show. As always, I have been Trey Dorn, and this show is brought to you by the lovely Patreons on Patreon. Yeah, I'm recording this in the middle of the night because it's when I had time to, so I'm a little loopy at this point. But this show is brought to you by the lovely patrons on Patreon, where even just $1 a month will get you episodes like this a whole week early. And I want to give a special shout out to the people at my witchy pal level, the shout out level of Lindsay Dosey, Bruce Norville, Courtney, Claire Dennis, Pamela Stariak, and Eldred Gamble. And just again, $1 a month will get you access to these episodes a whole week early, along with access to bonus content. We mentioned this last month, but I did a reaction video that came out with last month, which is me reacting to the entire first episode of The Pagan Invasion from Jeremiah Films, the classic piece of satanic panic propaganda. We did an episode analyzing it last month, but there is on my Patreon an entire, my full reaction of watching that for the first time in a decade, and bring it down. It's 2 hours long. And I will be doing more of those. Multiple people have requested that I do more of those. I will do reactions to other episodes in the series. I just have to find the time to sit down and record them, but they will happen, and you'll find out. Look forward to that in the coming months. If you want to contribute, go to patreon.com/TRAEGORN. That is patreon.com/TRAEGORN. Even if you can't afford to contribute money, because I understand the world is a nightmare and we're all trying to get by. Even if you can't afford to pay money, there is a free tier, which you don't get anything fancy, but it is a great way to keep up as I release new stuff besides the show. Because, as I come up with other stuff like my novels and things like that, because yes, I write novels. The Witch and the Rose, available in all bookstores. Witch and the Rose, Bloody Damn Right, and Shadowcasting are the first 3 books in the Mia Graves series. It is a contemporary fantasy series. It's very queer. It's very fun. Stuff happens. There's witches, but fantasy witches, not real witches, but there are some digs at some of the modern witchcraft movement and some of the dialogue of one of the characters. I love writing Zelda Markov. But those are all available. There are links in the show notes to buy those novels if you really want. There's, of course, a link in the show notes to buy Thorn Mooney's book, also, Witches Among Us, and I'll put that down there. I do not use affiliate codes, so I don't make any money off of any sales off of anything that are done. I'm just going to toss that in there because, again, I think this is a good book that you should buy. But again, if you want to support me and give me money, again, Patreon's the way to do it. Or buying books from me. And again, there are ebooks of all of my novels in my Patreon shop. Patreon members at the $1 level get access to the Super Awesome Action Heroes role-playing game systems. Members at the $5 level get access to releases of ebooks a year after they come out. And members at the $10 level, besides getting their shout out, get access to all of my novels as they come out in ebook form as a Patreon bonus. So check it out. If you want to follow the show and support me in other ways and just want to keep track of what I'm doing, whatever, you can follow me on social media. I am on Blue Sky at traegorn.bsky.social. I am on Tumblr, traegorn.tumblr.com. That is always the main place to find me on the web. And technically I have a TikTok at traegorn, but I haven't posted a video in a while or watched any videos in a while because I take breaks from TikTok when it stops being fun. And again, remember, if you are listening to this show, there is a video version that is available on both YouTube and on Spotify. The Spotify video episodes sometimes take a few hours for me to get posted, but it goes up. This goes up on YouTube right at the same time as the podcast hits the feed. So if you want to look at my stupid face while I record these episodes, because 90% of the time, there's some episodes that we do some interesting stuff visually and we go places. 90% of the time, it's just me sitting in this chair in this office, that flag over that window and whatever crap I throw behind me over there, and my big stupid microphone. You can watch the video version. I have other social media. If you want to follow me on Facebook, it is facebook.com/bs3witchcraft. Please do not try to find my personal Facebook page. That's where I talk to my mom, and anyone who sends me a friend request there who I don't know might get blocked. So don't do that. Unless we've talked about it, don't do that. Also, remember, this show has a Discord like every other show on the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network, because we are a member of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network, a great little podcast network that I am on. And we have a Discord. I mean, you can find an invite for that at nerdandtie.com/Discord. You can talk to me and Bree of Hex Positive and a whole bunch of other witches who are on that Discord. The Discord is for the entire network, but, almost everybody there's a witch, so just go for it. Also, we do have a forum. It is slow, it is quiet, it is sleepy, but it is a piece of social media that we own entirely that is not reliant on a major corporation, because Lord knows if TikTok even exists right now. I have not been keeping up with that. So you can always find it at nerdandtie.social. That is our forum. And remember, the whole Nerd and Tie network is at nerdandtie.com, and you can listen to other great shows like Hex Positive by Brina Guerin, the other witchcraft show, and Brina Guerin, of course, the author of Grove Daughter Witchery, one of the other books on my list of must-reads for beginners. And you can find her show at nerdandtie.com/hex. Again, we're doing the feedback episode in July. Deadline for questions is July 11th, 2025. To send in a question, go to bs3witchcraft.com/contact. bs3witchcraft.com/contact. If you send me the question any other way, there's a chance I might still get it on the show, but that's where I'm going to be compiling my big list from. So send me your stuff. I need your stuff. I know it's early, but I am asking you anyways now because I like to be prepared. So send me stuff. All right, magicians, I think that's everything we needed to run through. I'm a little manic right now because it is, again, middle of the night. We've been talking for a while, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in yet again. I am really grateful for every moment that people spend with me on this great internet and not so great internet. And with that, magicians, remember, dirt in our fingernail, brick in our hands. I know stuff is tough right now, but please remember, you are not alone. There's a community here that loves you, accepts you, and cares about you. And no matter how dark things look like they're going to get, we're here too. And we're here with you. And you're not alone. And with that, Magicians, I'll talk to you in a month.